Welcome everybody to another episode of Where's My Sock? I'm your host, Mr. E, and today we're going to be going over editing and mixing. If you ever opened up your editing software and thought to yourself, okay, where do I even start? Trust me, you're not alone. Because once you've gotten a recording, you suddenly hear about EQ, compression, noise reduction, file formats, your interface, your monitoring. And when you're looking at all those things in your software, it can feel like all those tools are screaming at you to say, pick me first, pick me first. But before you go and pick anything first, just slow down, because y'all know me, I'm always talking about math. You remember back in the day, the acronym, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Some of you may know it differently, but it stood for the order of operations for doing math equations. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, dear, addition and subtraction. That's what it stood for, right? Now, I don't have an acronym for you. Would have been cool if I came up with one, but hey, maybe together as a group we can. Let's have a discussion in the comments below. But that's what I want to go over with you guys today about editing. There's an order and operation that you want to do, that you should do, just to avoid any future problems. Excuse me on my alarm. But you want to have an order and operation to avoid any of those, to avoid making any more problems for yourself or making things complicated for no reason. Because a lot of times the tools themselves aren't the problem. The problem is you don't know the map. So you may not know the map. You might not know what each tool does exactly. So today we're going to build a simple system, not a bag of tricks, just an order you can repeat. So let's get through some intro music, and I'll come back and tell you why this is even important to know the order. So we'll be right back and we'll get into it. All right. So like I was saying, why is this even important? Well, it's important because it's going to help your frustration levels a lot. Because there's nothing more frustrating than knowing you did the right thing just at the wrong time. So let's talk about some of those things that can happen if you do things out of order, right? If you compress too early, you can pull up a lot of room sound and breaths, and suddenly you're chasing noise. That ain't good. If you run heavy noise reduction, the voice can start to sound watery or metallic. If you start aggressively using the EQ, you can make your voice sound kind of thin or harsh. And saving and exporting things under the wrong file format, you can end up stacking small quality losses. None of this means that you're bad at audio. Trust me, it doesn't. It just usually means your workflow needs a simple order. So let's break that down to get a concept. Just plain English a thing, right? Editing and mixing are two different things, okay? Editing is deciding what stays and what goes. Cutting mistakes, tightening pauses, arranging sections around, and ultimately forming your podcast. It's about decisions for the show, for the content. Mixing is deciding how everything sits, balancing the levels, shaping tone, controlling the jump in the volumes, those type of things, the actual quality of the audio. It's about the presentation of it. You see? Think of it like editing is cooking the podcast, mixing is presenting it on the plate. How about that? And once you see that, your tools stop feeling random and they fall into place. There are tools that help you hear what's happening, like monitoring and headphones. Tools that'll help you keep your audio stable, file format. Your audio interface is there as a tool to help you manage signal on its way to the computer, while multiple tracks will help you later while editing the different layers to your podcast. If you have background music, two different people talking, just those kind of layers. We'll get into that a little bit more. Then there's tools that are actually change how you sound, like EQ, compression, noise reduction. And that's the whole map. Now we just have to come up with a method to apply these different things and what order do we have to apply them in. So step 1 is simple. Listen before you fix. Put on some headphones and do a short scan. Not to judge, just to name what you're hearing. Is anything distorted? Is there a crackle? Does the room sound obvious in your recording? If you can name the problem, you can pick the right tool. If you can't name it, you're about to start spinning knobs. Next, make a simple file choice while you work. A lot of people keep a higher detail working file while they edit and only create the smaller upload/listening file at the end. The point isn't to memorize the format. It's to avoid constantly resaving and compressing audio during the work. If you have more than one source of things coming into your microphone or multiple microphones, like you as a host, you have a guest on and you have background music, organize your tracks immediately. Label them. Put them where you can see them. This doesn't make anything sound better. It prevents classic mistakes of editing the wrong lane, the wrong track, or accidentally throwing timing off. Remember, when you're working with multiple tracks, whatever you take off of one track, you have to take off for the rest of the tracks. Otherwise, things start getting out of order. After that comes the main editing pass. This is where you cut mistakes. The editing pass, remember that. We're cutting mistakes here, tightening long silences, any kind of distractions that come about. And again, when it comes to multi-tracks, just remember, mute the mic that isn't speaking during noisy sections. A lot of cleanup is just a smart editing choice, not heavy processing. Now let's move into shaping the sound. A clean starting place is usually EQ, especially subtractive EQ, which means cutting what's unhelpful before boosting anything. If there's low rumble, you reduce low rumble. If it's boxy and hollow, you reduce a bit of the boxy zone. If it's harsh, you tame the harsh edges. The goal isn't to redesign the voice. The goal is to solve one clear problem with a small move. And once you have tone under control, compression becomes easier to use. Compression is usually about controlling the big swings, those moments where the loud parts jump out compared to the quiet parts, you know? The more you push compression, the more you may notice breaths and room sound, especially if you raise the overall level afterwards. So the practical approach here is gentle. Control spikes without turning the whole recording into something that feels squeezed. Noise reduction comes after that, only if it has a clear target. It's best at a steady background noise, like a fan or a hum. It's not great at random noises that change constantly. The tell that you've pushed too far is when the voice starts sounding watery, swirly, or metallic. If you still hear a little background, but the voice strays naturally, that's often the better trade. Because you don't want to compromise your voice. If you have a little bit of a noise in the background, your listener will probably be more forgiving to that than if you start sounding real crazy, like, let's see if I can give an example. Oh yeah, here we go. So if all of a sudden you start using your noise reduction too much,
and you sound like this, it probably won't sound exactly like this,
but you get the point. Then you'll know that you probably pushed it a little too far. So again, I think people would much rather hear those background noises than to hear your voice sound like that. So just keep that in mind. Once you got all that, then we're going to move on to your balancing. This is where you make sure that the host and the guest feel consistent, music supports instead of competes, and the transitions don't spike. You're shaping the listening experience now. This is a great moment to listen once on headphones for detail and once on speakers just to check the overall feel. And at the very end of all these things, you're finally going to export your deliverable file. Your project stays as your workspace, and your export becomes your listenable version. And that's the workflow. Listen, organize, edit, shape, control, clean if needed, balance, and export. Here's a rule of thumb that'll keep this from turning into an endless tweaking battle. Only use a tool if you can finish this sentence. I'm using this tool because I hear this problem and I'm trying to change one thing. Not make it better, one thing. Rumble, harshness, big volumes. When you can name it, you'll know what to do next. And if you're ever unsure about order, default to this. Organize tracks, edit, EQ, compression, noise reduction if needed, balance, and export. Coming up on the end of the episode here, I just want to put everything together for you guys. Monitoring and headphones help you hear what's actually happening. File formats keep your working audio stable while you make changes. An audio interface helps manage gain and monitoring on the way in. Multiple tracks give you control over layers without collateral damage, and your EQ shapes the tone in targeted ways. Don't forget about compression, because that'll smooth out those big volume swings. And noise reduction lowers steady background noises when it's used gently and on purpose. Then you just balance everything and you export at the end. And that's the map. And that's the method. I hope that's helpful for you guys. I appreciate you guys for coming and listening. And if you haven't already, please turn on those notifications so that you never miss any of this information, so that you can be a little bit better tomorrow than you were today. And please, if you aren't already, follow me on social medias. Where's my sock? That could be on Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, you name it. It'll be some variation of Where's My Sock. I'm working on that to make sure it's just Where's My Sock across all platforms. But again, guys, this is a journey and it takes time and work. Those behind the scenes things. So thank you again, folks, for listening. And as always, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, evening, night, whatever it may be for yourself. Take care.